Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, where we help dads create a healthier and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval and I am your host. Today we are going to be talking about perseverance, and I have got the most amazing guest to share with us his story today. But before we jump into that, two brief show notes. The Dad's Divorce Blueprint class started just yesterday, but we still do have some room. So jump on over to dadsdivorceblueprint.com and check that out. We'd love to have a couple more men involved in that. And the divorce quiz is still going on at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Check that out. It's also a great tool to help you gauge where you're at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it. So a couple more resources for you out there. Please take advantage of them. All right. My guest today is a former Mr. Universe. Yes, a former Mr. Universe. He went from being a teacher making $12K a year to a millionaire, to losing it all and living on credit cards, to going back to being a multi-millionaire. And I shouldn't say back to, but earning, earning back and persevering back. So, and he is just one of the all-around coolest guys that I have ever met. And so please welcome Brian Peters.
Hello, Jude. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here, Brian. And, for a little background to the audience, you and I have done a little bit of work together and some trainings together. And you are a master of many things, as your bio states. You've had, you were a Mr. Universe. You've done some financial planning. You're part of the $1 Million Roundtable for financial planners out there that are listening. And you were a teacher. You've had a phenomenal background and a great story. Share with us a little bit more in detail about that, because I know, and I know what an amazing guy you are. I'd like our audience to know a little bit more about your background before we talk about perseverance.
Okay, all right. So as Jude was saying, I was formerly a teacher and loved being a teacher, hated being poor. So after 5 years in teaching, I left, ran nightclubs for a year or so, and then joined the financial services because I met my then wife and joined in. I found that I had a real knack for it and actually started at 30 and retired when I was 38, a millionaire. Went to live Portugal by the beach. I've always lived at beaches since then. And after 10 years, as Jude was saying, I became Mr. Universe, which was my main goal. During my journey to my Mr. Universe, I actually snapped my Achilles tendon 2 years before, and my people were sort of writing me off, and I said, well, I'll just do whatever it takes. If I have to do 1,000 rep sets with no weight, then I'll do it. But eventually sort of figured it all out and achieved my goal. Then things didn't go so well, I got divorced, and it made Donald Trump's divorce look like a nice barbecue tea party. We had lawyers in 3 countries. I'm sure they got country homes out of us, and literally went from, having the life of Riley to living on credit cards. Then I moved countries, went across to Singapore, and 6 years later, retired multi-millionaire. I was actually the #1 advisor on 2 continents, but it wasn't easy. It was, my divorce was pretty traumatic, and it was literally living sometimes hour to hour, let alone day to day. So it's still a journey, so I retired again after 6 years, and then I just travel the world, live on beaches, and then I coach other salespeople to cross the 7-figure barrier. So that's what I do.
That's pretty amazing. Now, a phrase you said a couple of times there was, it wasn't easy, or it isn't easy. And in our society these days, everything seems to be structured for, those commercials, the easy button, right? What was it, Office Depot or something, or this is easy, or it's easy. Everything seems to be easy and structured for easy, but persevering through things is not easy.
Not for me, it wasn't, and still it isn't to some points. So even though it's been quite a while since my divorce, which was a nightmare, it's still not like in the past, and and it's not easy. When we actually separated and I moved countries to go continent, my strategy for surviving was, as soon as I got up in the morning, I went straight out to work, and I literally worked until I just passed out from exhaustion. And I did that for 2 years. I didn't even open the curtains in the apartment that I was in, and I never even unpacked. I lived out of suitcases because I thought my whole life was just incredibly temporary. So I didn't divorce my wife because I didn't love her. I loved her like you wouldn't believe, but I was just getting nothing back. So it's like, it wasn't, I've fallen out of love, move on. And so, mine wasn't, oh yeah, put it behind you, it's move on and, marry someone else 2 years later, which I don't know how people do that, because I think, well, you couldn't have really loved each other very much, because, I had counseling for a long time, and it was just, it's not, I never found anything easy, and I still don't. I still get flashbacks, still really angry about things. And that's like 10, 12 years later. I have so it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about why that's okay though, and why that's a good thing, and how that can be utilized to persevere through stuff.
Okay.
Because easy, we have this concept of we're striving for comfort. It seems like that we're continually striving for comfort, yet everything you just described to me in what you've done, including the divorce, has all been very challenging, but on the backside has all been very rewarding. I mean, the challenge to persevere through the physical and working to become a Mr. Universe, it's the pinnacle of that profession. The $1 million roundtable, the amount of time that you put in and effort you put into that, it's the pinnacle of that profession as well. It's not easy, but why is that good?
Okay, that's a good question. I think it's, in a sense, what would be easy would be to just sit back and just cave in,
right?
Which I felt like doing many, many times. In fact, there was a couple of times when I was driving pretty fast and I thought, I really don't want to turn the wheel at this corner. At a couple of moments where it was just overwhelming for a long time. So I think easy is just giving in. I think sort of trying to make it to the next day. I don't know, I've always been driven type of person, but this was something I couldn't control. So I was learning a whole new skill about things that were not within my control. I mean, I even joined sort of that, what's that one that for divorced people, they go for a weekly meeting. I forgot what it is. We talked about it, Jude, where...
the Codependence Anonymous? Yeah. I mean, for the first year, I mean, I literally lived 7 days to that hour of that meeting, because that was how I judged time and surviving, was getting from one meeting. I couldn't miss the meeting. I was always the first there and the last to leave. It was, but it would be easy to give in, and then, I don't know, then the other person wins. And it was just a mental battle the whole time. I've never been someone who really gives up, but this was something that I had no control over. And that was, in my sales career, I've always figured out how to really control my business and
become the number one or two continents, earning millions of dollars, and 20 to 30 times my teacher salary monthly. But it was like I had control over the whole process. In my bodybuilding, I had control over the whole process. This divorce, and then I had no control. So it was a lack of the control that I was having to really persevere with. And, how do I get tools that help me get through the day? And that was what I was doing a lot of learning with.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You said that there's, these feelings, these overwhelming feelings that come up when we go through these difficult, challenging times, particularly like a divorce, that make you have thoughts of like, man, that might not be worth it, right? Like you said, maybe I should just turn the wheel. So, coming from you, who has been through, so many peaks and valleys, I just want to emphasize that to the men that are listening, that we all get those thoughts, right? That we all have those feelings that come up during those down points of these challenges. But the other point, the flip side that I want to emphasize to that is there is then a peak, if you will, persevere through that challenge or through that feeling, even if it's just a feeling right now that you're having to work through, just the feeling of depression or sadness or powerlessness or whatever it is, that getting through that and then moving on and persevering, there can be a backside to it. Right?
Yeah. I think one thing that it took me a long time to learn was when these flashback feelings came up, and they'd be really intense like that, acid burn in your stomach. And what I was always trying to do was shove it away, trying to bury it, trying to get rid of it. And it took me a long time to figure out that I need to actually not do that for a few minutes. So I developed a strategy for not having that momentary fight. So what I did was, and I think I shared this with you before, so what I do is I tend to carry a stopwatch. And what I do is that when I get that gut feeling or that really intense flashback, what I do is I give myself 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, I'm going to put it to one side. Now, this was quite revolutionary for me, because the more I kept trying to shove stuff away, the more I wanted to keep coming back. So when I sort of said, well, okay, let me sit with you for 5 minutes, and then I'll put you down. That was a big one for me. Actually, that's been something that I've actually transferred over into my business, my new business side, because I'm instead of being in one-to-one type environment, now I'm in an online world. And again, that's new to me, and I don't have much control. And when I'm trying to figure stuff out and I'm getting stressed, I go, hang on a minute. So I give myself 5 minutes, and then I said, okay, and now I'll put that one down, rather than this fighting, trying to fix it, stop it, fix it, and it gets all intense. So I try to reduce that intensity. So that's something that I've got from that. That's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal tip, because when we think of persevering, we think, oh, let's grind through it, right? But you're saying, okay, let me take a moment and to really look at and feel what it is that I'm going through, whatever it might be, and address these feelings and whatever the situation might be. We're talking in the context of divorce, right? But that could go for anything, right? So to just stop, take that time. Maybe it's not convenient to do 5 minutes at that second, right? But make sure at some point that you do take that time to be in it, because that's going to be a first step to like getting through and persevering. So it's a little bit, I love that, because it's a little bit counterintuitive when we think of persevering, right?
Yeah. Instead of just, let's just blast through this. It's like, I sort of likened it to, if you pick up a really hot stone, and that's that flash moment, and you want to throw it away, right? But what I thought, well, if I can hold on to the stone for a few minutes, the stone will cool down. Mm-hmm. So if the stone cools down, then it's not as painful.
Right.
So that's the sort of psychology that I play with. and that, because I've accepted they're not going to go away. I mean, I'll even wake up having dreamt about my ex, and I'm intense and I'm angry, and then oh, and I forgot to tell you, when I actually when I was working in my different country, it had affiliations to her to my ex-brother-in-law, right? He had this sort of, and it sort of worked out at the time, and yet, but when I came to retire, because I had my multi-millions, he somehow managed to figure out a way to steal $250,000 of my money as I left. Oh. So talk about add insult to injury on top of all of that, you know. So that whole family, and I mean, just wasn't good for me. That was
well, and so let me ask you this: did it take you some time to learn that technique that you just described? Because I know for me, like, I was just ignoring it. I was ignoring it. I was burying it. I was avoiding it. I was self-soothing or whatever else, just to stay away from it. And then what started happening was exactly what you described, was getting in another relationship where the same thing's happening. And these weren't just romantic relationships. I was carrying on the same behaviors in professional life, romantic life. It's the same, it's the same maladaptive behaviors that weren't serving me because I wasn't paying attention to this.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
So the question was, how did you learn that? Did you learn that right away? Was that something that you came to right away, or did you just finally, I was just beat my head against the wall so many times where, like you said, it's going to keep coming up?
Oh, no, it wasn't a fast solution. It was years. I was doing what you were doing, which was, as soon as this flash appeared, I was trying to run as fast as I could the other direction, to run away from it, right? But it sort of ran faster than I did and kept catching me up. So, but I had years of this type of not being able to deal with it. This sort of ongoing pain while I'm trying to obviously create a new life as well, appreciating time's going. But I wasn't someone who's like, okay, put that behind you and then move on. We actually were in South Africa one time when we were still married, and there was this big barbecue, and I was getting the lowdown on all the people who came, and they said, oh, that one's been married twice. This one's 3. He's been married 4 times. This one's been married 5 times. We were the only couple that hadn't actually got divorced and had a second partner. So I said to them, what is it they do? They say, oh, I don't like your hair today. Let's get divorced. I mean, I think there's no love there. I mean, how do you just move on that fast? I could not comprehend it.
Right.
I can't fathom it. So
well, I don't know that any of us want to do it more than one time. And if you've done it more than one time, I can't I can't imagine either. So what can you do though if you don't have that time to sit for 5 minutes in it? You have any tips for that? Like, sometimes it's just this stuff comes up, right? You might be in the middle of a meeting. What's a strategy around that?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think for me, what's happened, using the 5-minute thing, where I've sort of started to learn that initially there would be that intense feeling, and then I'm trying to run away from it. So when it comes back, it's still in intense feeling stage. It's like a 10 out of 10. But because I know I can sort of bring it down to a 5 or a 4. So if I get one of those flashes at that moment, I think I sort of accept that, I could take that down to a 5 or a 4. So I just have a second feeling. Instead of just trying to blindly run, I monitor it just for a moment and then go, I can handle you.
Okay.
I can handle you, but I can't handle you right now. So that's actually helped me in those moments where you don't have 5 minutes. So
right. So just take a minute. I think they say emotions last something like 19 seconds. So you're saying just take some time. I don't know. I like to, so I'll go for a walk. That's my thing, right? If I can, but sometimes you can't, right? Like, maybe you just need to go sit in the bathroom for a minute and just try to get through that emotion, but not let it go, right? You got to come back to it sometime.
Yeah, I think I saw some programs on TV where people had phobias and fears and really wound them up. And the psychiatrist, what did was actually made them go into that scenario and stay there until the 10 out of 10 intensity reduced a bit over time. So it's actually sitting in the thing that you hate most. So I've been running from it, like you were saying you were doing. I've been running from it for years. Every chance I got, the minute it poked its head up, I was running. So I was never dealing with it. I didn't know how to deal with it.
So, yeah. So that's the interesting point then, because what I found is it's not necessarily a one-time deal either. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that one. Same thing keeps coming up, and it just,
Right, and it can be an iteration of it or something else. So it feels like we have this concept in our mind, especially as maybe being high achieving men, that you're going to go through and you're going to do something once and then you're going to conquer it, right? Like you went through and you figured out a way, became Mr. Universe, you became part of the $1 Million Roundtable. But these emotions, this stuff, it's not like you don't get through it literally one way and then you're just done with it and you've conquered it, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of irritating.
Oh, yeah. And irritating is really a very good description. And it's frustrating that, you can't seem to just do what other people appear to do. And I think that's one where there's a real false thing where you feel, I felt for ages I was failing. Why have they moved on and I can't? What's wrong with me? Right? And then part of me is going, well, every day I write a gratitude list. I'm the universe, I'm multimillionaire, I have choices, I'm alive, I'm fit, and so I do all of this sort of stuff. But at the time, I was like, oh, this guy, he's got divorced, and he's going to get married. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I such a weak guy? And of course, we all put this mask on in pub. Yeah, we're okay, and we don't want to admit that we're like dying inside.
Yeah,
and we can't cope, and we're just mush, and we're trying to portray that we're strong men and all this. So there was that conflict as well, and I didn't like doing that, but that's society, isn't it? We're sort of programmed that nobody's interested anyway, and half the other people are glad you got it because it makes them feel better. So
right.
but why was I not getting over it like everybody else was doing? What's wrong with me? What's a big thing I kept asking me? Why am I so weak?
That's a great point, because we don't know that. We don't know that we all go through things at our own different paces for our own different reasons, because we've had our own different backgrounds and upbringings, and we have our different triggers and all of this stuff that comes up. And I know for me, you talked about the Codependents Anonymous and sitting in there. I remember sitting in the first meeting I ever had and listening to people and going, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. There's other people that are having some of these same feelings or going through some stuff, maybe not exactly the same, but like, I'm not, it's not just me.
Right.
That there's others going through it.
Yeah. And the big problem I had at the time was there wasn't anything like your groups, or there weren't groups there that I would have felt confident to sort of walk into. Codependents Anonymous was quite interesting. It's like, hi, I'm Brian. It's like, that's it. You're not going to know anything else about what we do and all that sort of thing. Right. But there were no groups to help. And actually, a friend of mine, funny enough, his name's Brian, he got divorced. And we used to talk about this is after the divorce. I needed to know this stuff before. So I don't know why everybody else feels who's going through it, but you don't open your laptop because there's going to be an email from your lawyer, right? And it ain't going to be good. Or there's going to be an email from your ex, but we hardly ever conversed after at all. It was just almost nothing, but it was all lawyers. And you saw the email from the lawyer and this pain in your gut. It was horrendous. I know I've got to open it. So it's either going to be bad news or it's going to cost me a fortune, right? And I don't want to open it. But I can't not open it because I'm going to have to. And it was just, so the emails, and then of course it's like the Chinese water torture. I didn't get an email today. Like, oh, bloody hell. Oh, so now when's it coming? Because you know it's coming, right? So and I was just, how do I deal with this? And I think I shared with you. My friend said, oh, he said, I had a friend of mine. He said, when I got the emails, he said, I just passed it on to him. He opened it and then would say to me, oh, this one's okay. This is just about, so he let someone else take the sting out of it. And I thought, I wish you'd have told me, because that would have been a real biggie for me. Like that would have been a real coping tool. But you're just on your own. And I was trying to deal with it myself. And everybody, thinks you're going to handle it and you got to live up to that. And really, you just want to crash.
Right. And you bring up another great point, which is having somebody, at least somebody, if not a community of people around you or supporting you that you can reach out to and talk to and share with, because we get so isolated. We're isolated in general in our society, I feel like, more so than before, but as men, we kind of get isolated too.
Yeah, that's a really big point. You felt on your own, and it was like there was nobody to help lift the burden for a while, or just literally just vent in a really, really safe way. Because you're feeling, well, I don't know about others, but all people that we knew and friends, they know me as very successful, and to all of a sudden having this whimpering, mush, sort of whining and whimpering. And I mean, I just thought that would be so embarrassing. But that was what I actually needed. I needed somebody who got it and understood it. Yeah. But I felt that I could just open up, and there was nothing. So of course, it's all inside, and it's just it's miserable.
It's miserable.
It is.
You're going through one of the most painful things that you could possibly go through. You're alone, and oftentimes you don't understand all of the emotions and the feelings that are coming up, because if you were like me, you spent a lifetime repressing them and avoiding them, and it's all just really overwhelming. And so I know that I get that with a lot of men that I hear from. It's just overwhelming. But I do want to, so now that we've made everybody depressed about that, I want to talk about now that, now down the road. So you've had these ups, you've had these downs, and in the context of divorce, do you see now, do you feel more empowered? Do you feel stronger? You have all this great knowledge that you've given us today, that you've applied to your life. How do you feel now after being down, what did you say, 12, 13 years down the road after this?
Well, I'd really like to say, I've got it sussed now, and life's a breeze, and I look forward to every day, and everything's wonderful, and I don't get any flashbacks, and I don't get, but that's just not there. Less and less. And I think what I've learned is that initial stabbing intense at that moment, what I do is I don't run from it. Yeah. Because we retired to Portugal, and I'm going back to Portugal. But it took me over 6 years before I could even think of going into the whole country, not just the bit where we live, the whole country, because it just now had gone from my whole dream of where I was living to my worst nightmare. I couldn't even set foot in the country. That's how intense it was. It just took a long time to be able to even consider going back. And, the thought of driving past my house, because obviously she got the house with the pool and the gym and tennis court and the whole 9 yards sort of thing. But there'll be moments where we're watching film on TV with my partner, and it'll be somewhere like Spain, or a scene in Spain will come up. And of course, it looks just like where I used to live. And that moment is like a reminder of what I lost.
Right.
Because there's still moments of loss as well as, well, I've gained this, this, and this, but also, I know what I lost in my life. And instead of just trying to turn the film off or move, what I do is I sit there and just let it feel for a moment and let it die. So I've accepted that it's not going away for me. It's just what I needed was coping mechanisms. Because when it first happened and separated and I was talking to counselors, my first thing was, look, I need you to fix me, right? Fix me now, right? And well, it doesn't work like that. So look, I don't want 2 years of counselor. I want you to fix me now. Tell me what you can do. I was just, fix me. I'm broken, fix me. Right. Of course, that doesn't happen, does it? So,
right. So if we want to summarize, we could describe this and divorce is one of the greatest opportunities for us to learn persevering through something. Would you agree with that?
You'll learn a lot about, plowing on, because it's not like you described earlier, you've got a challenge at work or whatever it is, and you persevere, and then you complete the task and you accomplish what you want to do, and then you move on. This thing is just a never-ending, target process, and you just have to keep handling it and getting better at it. So yeah, it does make you strong. It's not a skill I would have opted to want to learn, but I do see where there are moments where I apply it in other parts of my life.
Yeah.
I could have lived without those skills, honestly, but yeah, there are other areas of life where you can sort of apply it.
Yeah. So I look at it a little differently than not that it's never ending, because for me, I feel like it's something now that I was missing in my life that I needed to have in order to better my life, a skill that I needed to learn in order to better my life. And so now the fact that it's part of my life, you call it never ending, I just call it part of my life, right? That learning to deal with this, because now I see it works in my life and in my relationships with my daughters. It works in my life and my relationships with business partners and other professionals. So it's all something that, had I not gone through and persevered through the divorce and had this breaking open and having to go through this, I don't feel like I would be as strong in being able to go through that and work through those things, whether it's the teenager giving you the finger the other day, or a difficult and challenging business relationship that might be going wrong or sideways or something like that. Had I not gone through that and really learned how to persevere through it, deal with the emotions, learn then, the next step is learning to better communicate and stuff like that.
Yes, that I see what you're saying now. In the past, what I've always been trying to do was fix it and it'll never come up again. Gone, and this is a fresh start, right? And none of that will ever appear in my life again because it's done.
Yeah.
Right? And it took a long time to realize, like you were saying, it's a part of your life. And I suppose in the business side of it, what it taught me was, because when you're in business, things either go great or not so good, and you get that like this, and you want to fix it. What I've learned to do is, when real intense emotions, for whatever reasons, come up, I sort of pause with them, and I don't sort of let it in so deep. So on a business side, if something's going either way, I sort of observe it like as if it's over there now, instead of it's internally part of me. I go, oh, okay. So I think what it's done for me on that point is I'm less sort of reactive to sort of like, stresses or whatever happens like this. I can pause now, because I've learned to have to pause and go, okay, and let's observe it. Do I really, and not push it away fast, because it's going to come up again. right?
Yeah.
Like you can't hide it. It's behind you, you can't hide it. It's kind of come around. So let's just sit with it for a moment. So I'm less disturbed emotionally. I think that's the thing that I've got from this. I sort of, if something looks really intense, I can sort of go, oh, well, hang on. Let me bring it down to a 5 or a 6 or a 7 before I accept that I want to deal with it. Whereas before you're trying to handle the 10, and of course it's like burning hot. So I just try and let it cool down a bit before I handle it. I think that's what I've got from that helps me, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Truly, truly amazing. And to hear that from you, it just is so inspiring to me, and I'm sure to the men that are listening too, because taking that and having had the massive success that you've had, but then also going through this heart-wrenching, challenging divorce, and then seeing how that actually helps you in your life. That's just an amazing, awesome thing that I just think gives people so much inspiration and hope towards the future, that even though they're going through this now, if they're going to do the things that you just mentioned, that we just talked about throughout the show, that slowly, that's the perseverance part. It's not just gritting our teeth, like we said, and just getting through it.
Yeah.
It's what you just described. There is a bigger, better life that opens up after that, and it permeates through all of your life. So thank you, Brian. It's just such a good message and so exciting. That's why I was so excited to have you on today, because I know your story, and I love our conversations, and we talk, and I was just so pleased to have people be able to hear and get to know you also, because it's an awesome story. So thank you.
You're more than welcome, and I hope someone helps someone out there, because it's not an easy ride.
Yeah, no, it is challenging, but definitely worth it. So Brian, where can, like I said, you are the master of sales psychology, among other things, but where can people connect with you and learn more about you and your business and what else you're doing?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. My website is brianpeters.coach, or people can email me at brian@brianpeters.coach. So website is brianpeters.coach, and my email is brian@brianpeters.coach. Brian with an I. Okay.
Got it. And I will just give you a brief plug too. Brian and I have done some work together outside of this context, and he is absolutely amazing. So if you have an opportunity to check out his website, and you are a salesperson, and anybody that is in the sales arena, there is nobody better. And I've been doing sales in my other career for over 15 years, and I've met lots of salespeople, done lots of sales seminars and coaches and all like that. There's nobody like Brian to take you through the process. And that's why I call him the master of sales psychology, because he is absolutely phenomenal. So please check him out. Please support him. He's been nice enough to come and share his amazing story and his life with us today. So I'd hope that you'd support him or turn him on to somebody else that you might know as well. So Brian, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for being with us today.
It's a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me. And you have a great time, Jude.